The 2025 NFL Draft was recently held in Green Bay, Wisconsin, and when I went there, I brought 4 phones to test all 4 major networks: Verizon, AT&T, T-Mobile, and Boost Mobile, so I could find out which one held up the best against a crowd of 600,000 people. And I tested these networks in several locations, from the Verizon Lounge to right up next to the stage. So let's get started with Friday, the second day of the draft, and the first day I was able to make it there. My first tests were close to the stadium building and a decent distance away from the stage. I ran 5 back-to-back tests on all 4 phones at once, and here's how it turned out. Verizon got an average download of 155 megabits per second and an average upload of 12.8 megabits per second. AT&T averaged 200 megabits per second down and 13.3 megabits per second up, and T-Mobile was the winner here with an average of 392 down and 26.9 up. Finally, Boost averaged 204 down and 11.8 up. Something nice about running 5 concurrent tests on each of these is we not only get the average download, upload, ping, and stuff like that, but we can also determine stability and reliability. So while Verizon only caught LTE at this time and location, it was pretty consistent between each test. AT&T, apart from that first test, was also consistent. T-Mobile and Boost is where we see the most ebbs and flows in both download and upload speeds. After I did my quite inconclusive testing at that spot, I went a lot closer to the stage and set my phones on top of this trash can. This is where I think the carriers really start to show their true colors. Verizon caught 5G ultra wideband and it got an average download of 911 megabits per second and an average upload of 17.8 megabits per second. AT&T did not work at all, and this will unfortunately be a common theme throughout the rest of this video. Sorry, AT&T. You might as well call it awful, trash, and terrible. T-Mobile averaged 59.6 down and 23.6 up, and Boost scored second, averaging a 161 megabit per second download speed and 24.4 on the upload. But the winner overall was Verizon, scoring the best download and pings that were so much lower than the others. But I wasn't done at the stage just yet, because the Packers were announcing one of their picks, which ended up being Anthony Belton. Being in Green Bay, most of the draft attendees were local cheeseheads. This moment was going to be big, so how did the 4 networks hold up through it? I'll rip the band-aid right now. AT&T didn't hold up, continuing to not work. Believe me, I tried turning airplane mode on and off, restarting the phone, I tried pretty much everything possible. I just couldn't get AT&T to work at all. On the flip side, Verizon powered through this moment, averaging 1,312 megabits per second down and 19.7 megabits per second up. The only thing I'm concerned about with Verizon here are the consistently high pings and not amazing upload speeds, but still, if I have to pick one network to use out of these 4, I'm taking Verizon in a heartbeat. T-Mobile was kinda all over the place with wildly fluctuating download and upload speeds, and I get it, I'm also all over the place a lot of times, but what it means for our average is T-Mobile performed the worst out of every network that actually net worked. They scored an average download speed of 53.5 megabits per second and an average upload of 13.1 megabits per second. Boost only worked some of the time, but out of the times that it did work, it averaged 178 megabits per second down and 15.9 megabits per second up. That was all the testing I had time for on Friday night, but I was fired up for Saturday, and I got all kinds of testing at several different locations around the Lambeau Field / Titletown area. First, I ran some tests next to the Hinterland Brewery restaurant near one of the only entrances to the draft. This was the last spot everyone walked through before they made it to Lambeau Field. After walking to the other side of the stadium, you get to the stage area. Now onto the testing and results. Verizon only caught LTE out here, but it still gave us a respectable 205 megabit per second average download and an average upload of 58 megabits per second. AT&T not only worked today, but they actually outperformed Verizon with an amazing average download of 633 megabits per second and an average upload of 63 megabits per second. However, AT&T did not take the W here, that would go to T-Mobile, averaging a download of 834 megabits per second and an upload of 84.2 megabits per second. Boost Mobile did about the same as Verizon, averaging 226 megabits per second down and 45.9 up. Now, would Verizon perform closer to AT&T and T-Mobile if it caught 5G on my phone? Probably, but it didn't. Next, I ventured closer to the stage where I made a stop at the Verizon Experience Zone. This is a VIP lounge for Verizon customers, with a table that has built-in wireless chargers, comfy seating, and giant Jenga. Again, the trend of Verizon only catching LTE weirdly continues, averaging pretty normal LTE speeds, but they were at least faster than AT&T on low-band 5G. T-Mobile caught 5G UC, so they were faster than Verizon at Verizon's own Experience Zone, with an average download of 411 megabits per second and an average average upload of 60.2 megabits per second. Boost scored the worst average download at 77.1 megabits per second, but they got the second best upload, averaging 44.1 megabits per second. But then I made it into the top secret Verizon lounge, a place you could only get into if you showed these passes before you got in. After getting into the lounge, I grabbed some chicken and waffles, brutally consumed said chicken and waffles, and then I got to work. And in here, I caught 100 megahertz of band N260, meaning for the first time at the NFL draft, I got Verizon millimeter wave. This got me excited. In their lounge, Verizon averaged 1,275 megabits per second down and 42.7 megabits per second up. AT&T continued to perform poorly on their low band 5G, and T-Mobile and Boost performed about the same. Not bad, but not outstanding. But now it was time to head back to the stage for our final test of the 2025 NFL draft. There were a lot less people here on Saturday compared to the previous day, so the networks weren't under as much stress. As a result, almost all of them cooked. Verizon caught millimeter wave, which is awesome, so it averaged 2,109 megabits per second down and 52.4 megabits per second up. AT&T apparently caught 5G plus, but I have my doubts with performance like that. Or maybe that's just how it is under pressure, averaging 90.5 megabits per second down and 15.7 megabits per second up. T-Mobile performed perfectly fine on their mid-band 5G UC, resulting in a 553 megabit per second average download speed and an average upload of 35.6 megabits per second, but again, we did see a lot of fluctuation between results. Boost Mobile was more consistent and scored third place. Boost overall was the most consistent performer at every time and location I tested at. It wasn't the fastest by any means, but what this tells me is that not a lot of people are using the native Boost Mobile network. This kind of makes sense to me because Boost doesn't have as many customers as the big three, and their new network is still only compatible with a slim selection of suitable cellulars. The worst network at the NFL Draft Award goes to none other than AT&T. Amazingly terrible and not good. Don't get me wrong, I caught 5G plus plenty of times, but I also run into the network not networking at all plenty of times. But finally, what you've all been waiting for, which network performed the best at the 2025 NFL Draft? It was Verizon, by a long shot. Again, definitely not perfect, but when I caught 5G ultra wideband on either C-band or millimeter wave, it was phenomenal. Plus, they get bonus points for having the Verizon lounge. This isn't super surprising. Verizon has spent many months and millions of monies building out tons of temporary and permanent networking equipment all around Lambeau Field, the intersection of Lombardi Avenue and Oneida Street where the stage was, and Titletown, the area around Lambeau Field. They also happen to be one of the event's main sponsors. It was virtually impossible to walk around there without seeing the Verizon logo. So for the fastest network of the 2025 NFL Draft, Max Hietpas chooses Verizon. If you found this interesting, drop a like and leave a comment below if you went to the NFL Draft. What network were you on and what was it like? Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.